My name's Sam Ferguson. I'm a pastor at a local church in the Washington, D.C. area. And I wanted to speak with you briefly today about a question that's become important to me, but also been challenging for me. And the question is, does God care about gender identity? Maybe that's a question that's important to you as well. The question first became personal to me about a decade ago while I was a graduate student in England. A classmate of mine shared that though he was biologically male, that he'd always felt that he was a girl or a woman. And he also was on a spiritual quest, trying to find if God was real and where he fit with his gender confusion into any notion of there being a God. We became friends, we prayed together, and one day he asked me, he said, "Sam, do you feel like a man?" I said, "I do." And he said, "What does that mean? And don't tell me it means that you like girls in sports. What does it mean to feel like a man?" I knew that question was profound and that I couldn't answer it easily. And my friend and I, as he started to turn towards God and be more open to Christianity, we took that question, the question of gender, to Scripture. And we went to the beginning, back to the start. We went to Genesis 1, 2, and 3. And we brought this question with us. What is gender? Does God care about gender identity? And we discovered three things that have really shaped how I approach this question of gender identity as we looked at Genesis. First, we saw that identity is God-given, not man-made. So whether you're talking about gender or any other type of identity, as a Christian, you have to realize your identity is God-given, not man-made. And you see in Genesis 1, if you read it carefully, that in creation, God's always the actor. God's doing the making. He's saying, he's separating, he's placing. And ultimately, in Genesis 1:27, we hear three times the verb created. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. So this was the first truth we had to reckon with. Whoever we are, it's got to come from God, not us. So identity is God-given, not man-made. And then we ask, what does this have to do with our gender? I mean, we know God made us male and female. So the question then became, is gender about my feelings or my body? And as we stayed in Genesis, we looked at Genesis 2, which is a microcosm. God zooms in, and we see him creating the first man and the first woman. And in that account, if you read it carefully, it's very physical. God's working with bones and ribs and flesh. He forms the man in Genesis 2:7. That's a verb that's later used for a potter forming clay. He builds or makes the woman from the man's rib, a verb that appears later in the Bible for making an altar or building a city. And then the one flesh union, Genesis 2:24, of the man and woman is only sensible because of the complementarity of the male and female body. So you realize from Genesis 2 that biblically, gender is never less than the body. Gender is never less than biology, according to God's design. So our gender is our body, not our feelings. That's the second thing we realized. And then third, we moved through Genesis 3, and we had to deal with pain. What does a person do with pain? In my friend's case in England, he was wrestling with dysphoria. There was dissonance between how he felt on the inside and life on the outside. And we had to reckon with that. That dissonance didn't go away, even as he grew closer to God. And what we saw there was that the decisive question was, what do you do with pain? Where do you go for hope? And we found that whereas the gender movement offered hope through the practice of transitioning, the Bible offers hope through transformation. They both have the prefix trans, but the latter, the biblical one, is very different. Transitioning culturally starts with the outside of the person. It says, change the body to heal the mind. Biblical transformation is the total opposite. Paul says in Romans 12 that we are to present our bodies to God as a living sacrifice, and that we're to be transformed by the renewal of our minds. So we saw that transformation, when we're in pain or dysphoria, has to begin with the Spirit working on the heart, not the scalpel working on the body. So we have to trust God, our Creator, with our bodies. This isn't always easy news, but it is good news. It's good news because what it means is that we're asking our friends or ourselves, if we struggle with dysphoria, to put our lives along the grain of creation, or to order our lives along the grain of creation, and to aim change along the arc of redemption. Remembering that the same God who wove us together in our mother's womb is going to raise us from the dead with congruity with the body he's always made us to have. We can see from Jesus that there's continuity between our resurrected body, both before and after the resurrection. Jesus was a man while he walked with us on earth during his ministry, and Jesus was a man when he was resurrected. And his disciples could see his body. They could touch it. We see this in Luke 24. So too with us. The body that you have, God wove together in your mother's womb. He made you male or he made you female. And in the resurrection, that will be a perfected body, to be sure. But it will be the male or female body God ultimately has made you to have. You are the man or woman God made you to be. From the moment when you just were a thought in his mind, to his formation of you in your mother's womb, to the resurrection, to your life with him in eternity.